The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional career, legal, financial, or psychological advice. Career development involves various risks, and individual results depend on numerous factors including market conditions, personal effort, and prior experience. Historical trends and case studies discussed herein are not predictive of future results. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence and consult with a certified career counselor, licensed attorney, or qualified financial advisor before making significant life or employment decisions. The creators of this content are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information provided in this video. The average American worker will spend over 90,000 hours of their life at work, yet according to recent workforce analytics, nearly 50% of employees in the United States report being unhappy or unengaged in their current roles. We are currently witnessing a massive structural shift in the U.S. labor market where traditional career ladders are being replaced by what experts call a career lattice. Yet most people are still using job-seeking strategies from 1995. You might think that the difference between a free career center and a $5,000 private coach is just a fancy office and a better LinkedIn headshot, but the reality is much more calculated. There is a hidden architecture behind how professional guidance is delivered in this country, and choosing the wrong path doesn't just cost you money. It costs you years of misaligned labor and thousands of dollars in stagnant wages. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand the precise mechanisms that separate high-tier executive coaching from community-based resources, and we are going to break down the exact ROI of both so you never have to guess if you are being underserved or overcharged. In the United States today, the barrier to entry for career advice has never been lower, yet the cost of bad advice has never been higher. We are living in an era where an algorithm can write your resume, but it cannot navigate the nuances of a high-stakes salary negotiation or a complete industry pivot. This masterclass is designed to solve the fundamental paralysis that many U.S. professionals feel when they hit a ceiling. Whether you are a recent graduate staring at a mountain of student debt or a mid-level manager feeling the burn of corporate stagnation, the choice between free and paid resources is the first strategic move of your next decade. We are going to examine the historical trends of the American workforce, look at case studies of successful career transitions, and provide a step-by-step framework for auditing your own professional needs. To truly understand the value proposition of career counseling, we have to look at the landscape of free resources available in the U.S. The most prominent of these are the American Job Centers, funded by the Department of Labor. These centers are a cornerstone of the public workforce system, providing a massive array of services at zero cost to the individual. When we talk about free counseling, we are talking about a system designed for high-volume accessibility. These centers offer tools like the O-Net Interest Profiler, which helps individuals map their interests to specific occupational titles. However, the limitation often lies in the ratio of counselors to seekers. In a public setting, a counselor might be managing a caseload of hundreds of individuals. This creates a functional gap where the advice provided is often generalized rather than surgical. For example, a free resource might help you format a standard chronological resume that passes an applicant tracking system, or ATS. They can provide data on which industries are currently hiring in your specific zip code, using Bureau of Labor Statistics data. This is foundational, essential work. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the private, paid career coaching industry, which has exploded into a multi-billion-dollar sector in the U.S. Paid career counseling is not just about finding a job, it is about career design and personal branding. When a professional pays for a high-end coach, they are often paying for specialized labor market intelligence and a level of psychological behavioral mapping that free services simply aren't equipped to provide. Private coaches often use proprietary assessments like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or the Strong Interest Inventory, but they go a step further by providing hours of one-on-one synthesis. They look at potential outcomes based on your specific personality profile and your unique professional history. This is where we see the transition from a broad-spectrum approach to a high-fidelity strategy. Let's look at a case study to illustrate the depth of this difference. Imagine a software engineer in Austin, Texas, who wants to move into a director of product role. A free career center will help that engineer identify the job descriptions for product directors and perhaps offer a mock interview. A paid, specialized executive coach, however, will likely conduct a 360-degree feedback audit, reaching out to the engineer's former colleagues to identify blind spots in their leadership style. They will help the individual curate a thought leadership presence on platforms like LinkedIn or industry-specific forums. The paid coach is looking at the long-term historical trends of the tech industry to position the client not just for the next job, but for the next 3 promotions. This brings us to the concept of the hidden job market. Research suggests that upwards of 70% of jobs in the US are never even posted on public job boards. They are filled through internal referrals and professional networks. Free career services generally focus on the visible market, the 30%. They teach you how to apply and how to compete in a crowded room. Paid career counseling often focuses on the other 70%. They teach you how to bypass the room entirely. They focus on networking strategies, informational interviewing techniques, and the psychological barriers that prevent people from reaching out to high-level decision-makers. We must also consider the economic reality of these 2 paths. For many Americans, paying $300 an hour for a career coach is a financial impossibility. This is where the depth of this video becomes vital. We are going to explore how to leverage free resources with the mindset of a high-paying client. There are ways to hack the public system by knowing exactly which questions to ask and which specific databases to request access to. Conversely, for those considering the investment in a paid coach, we will look at how to vet these professionals so you don't end up paying for information that is readily available for free on a government website. In the upcoming sections of this masterclass, we will dive into the specific categories of career assistance, from resume writing and LinkedIn optimization to interview psychology and salary negotiation. We will break down the exact costs you can expect in the US market, ranging from the $0 government models to the $10,000 executive packages. We will look at the credentials you should look for, such as the National Certified Career Counselor designation, and explain why a certificate matters or doesn't, depending on your goals. This is about more than just a paycheck. It is about the strategic management of your greatest asset, your career. By the time we are done, you will have a comprehensive map of the US career counseling ecosystem, allowing you to make a choice rooted in data rather than desperation. We are starting with the foundational differences in philosophy between public and private guidance, because understanding the why behind these services is the only way to effectively utilize the how. To truly grasp why the American career counseling landscape is split down the middle, we have to look at the historical trends of how the United States government views labor versus how the private sector views talent. Imagine it is early 2026, and a professional named Marcus in Columbus, Ohio, has just been laid off from a mid-level logistics role due to an automated warehouse transition. Marcus represents the millions of Americans who find themselves at a crossroads every year. His first instinct might be to visit a local American job center, a federally mandated entity under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. The underlying philosophy of these free services is what we call the work-first model. The primary objective is rapid re-employment to stabilize the local economy and reduce the strain on unemployment insurance funds. In this ecosystem, the metrics for success are placement rates and short-term retention. This means the guidance Marcus receives will be highly optimized for getting him back into a paycheck-producing position as quickly as possible. The free model operates on a principle of horizontal utility. They are experts at identifying transferable skills that can move a worker from a declining industry into a growing one within the same wage bracket. For Marcus, this might mean a counselor showing him data that his logistics background makes him a prime candidate for a supply chain coordinator role in the burgeoning green energy sector in the Midwest. The counselors use tools like the Career One-Stop Portal, which is a massive tax-funded database that provides localized wage data, required certifications, and even lists of employers who have recently received federal grants to hire veterans or dislocated workers. This is a powerful data-driven approach, but it is fundamentally reactive. It solves the immediate problem of, I need a job now. Now, contrast this with the philosophy of a paid career strategist. Imagine Marcus decides to skip the job center and instead invest $3,000 in a boutique career coaching firm based in Chicago that specializes in executive pivots. The philosophy here shifts from work first to legacy and leverage. A private coach isn't just looking at what Marcus can do. They are looking at what the market is willing to pay a premium for over the next 10 years. They aren't just looking at job boards. They are looking at the capitalization of companies. A private coach might tell Marcus that while he could get a supply chain job today, the historical trends suggest that by 2030, those roles will be further compressed by integrated AI systems. Instead, they might steer him toward a high-level operations role in a Series B startup, where he can negotiate for equity. The paid model is proactive and focuses on vertical mobility and total compensation, including bonuses, stock options, and remote work flexibility. This leads us to the critical distinction of personalized attention and the cost of acquisition for information. In the free U.S. public system, the counselor's time is a public good, which means it is rationed. You might get 30 minutes every 2 weeks. You are responsible for the heavy lifting. Step 1 in a free environment is often a self-directed assessment. You sit at a government terminal and answer questions about whether you like working with people or data. Step 2 is a group workshop on resume building. Step 3 is a meeting with a specialist who checks your progress. It is a linear, standardized process designed to serve the greatest number of people with a finite budget. It is incredibly effective for foundational stability, but it lacks the nuance of high-stakes advocacy. In a paid relationship, the dynamic is inverted. You are the employer and the coach is your consultant. Step 1 in a high-end paid scenario is often a deep-dive biographical interview where the coach looks for narrative threads in your history that you haven't even recognized. They might find that your hobby of rebuilding vintage engines actually demonstrates a high-level systematic thinking capability that is highly valued in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Step 2 involves a market mapping exercise where the coach identifies 25 specific individuals in your target industry and helps you draft personalized outreach that doesn't look like a cold call. Step 3 is often real-time support, where you can text your coach before a big interview for a quick confidence boost or a strategy refinement. Case studies from 2024 and 2025 show that professionals who utilize paid career services reported a 25% higher starting salary on average than those who navigated the process alone or through public channels. This isn't because the paid coaches have a secret list of jobs. It is because they provide the psychological scaffolding required to ask for more. In the United States, salary negotiation is a cultural minefield. Public career centers rarely have the resources to do intensive, multi-round role-playing for a negotiation over a six-figure salary. They are focused on ensuring you meet the minimum requirements for the role. A paid coach, however, will spend 3 hours analyzing a company's annual report to find the specific pain points you can mention to justify a higher sign-on bonus. Let's look at the hidden costs of free services that most people ignore. While the price tag is zero, the time to placement can sometimes be longer because of the bureaucratic hurdles. If you are a high earner currently out of work, every month you spend in a generalized search is a month of lost wages. If your potential salary is $15,000 a month, a 3-month search costs you $45,000 in opportunity cost. In this scenario, paying $5,000 to a coach who can shorten your search by 8 weeks results in a massive net gain. This is the potential outcome math that sophisticated U.S. professionals use to justify high coaching fees. However, for a significant portion of the American workforce, the paid route is a trap. There is a dark side to the private coaching industry: the template mills. These are companies that charge thousands of dollars, but essentially provide the same standardized advice you could get for free at a public library. They use aggressive marketing to target people who are feeling vulnerable or stuck. This is why we must look at the specific data points that define a quality service. In the U.S., the gold standard for public service is the Global Career Development Facilitator, GCDF, credential. If you are using a free center, you should ask if your counselor holds this. In the private sector, you are looking for specific industry experience. A coach who is a former recruiter at a Fortune 500 company has insider data that a generalist coach simply cannot replicate. We also have to discuss the role of technology in 2026. Free services have integrated massive AI-driven platforms like the Skills Match tool, which uses neural networks to predict where a worker's skills will be most valuable. This has narrowed the gap between free and paid services significantly. In the past, only expensive coaches had access to sophisticated labor market analytics. Today, the U.S. government provides much of this data for free through the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook. The value of a paid counselor is no longer just the data. It is the interpretation of that data within the context of your specific life and the current geopolitical climate. For instance, how do shifting trade policies with North America affect your specific role in manufacturing? A free center might give you a PDF on the topic. A paid coach will help you rewrite your entire career thesis to align with the new reality. The question of which is best isn't about the size of your bank account. It is about the complexity of your transition. If you are looking for a job that is a natural next step in your current field, the free resources in the USA are more than sufficient. They are excellent at facilitating incremental growth. But if you are attempting a quantum leap, changing industries, jumping 2 levels in seniority, or returning to the workforce after a 5-year gap, the standardized public model may fail you. You are essentially asking a system designed for high-volume throughput to handle a highly customized low-volume problem. As we look at the historical trends of the 2020s, we see a clear pattern. Those who treat their career as a business and their counselor as a strategic partner tend to see more resilient potential outcomes. But how do you actually know if you are being sold or coached? How do you spot the red flags in a private coaching contract that could tie you to a percentage of your future earnings? And most importantly, what are the 3 specific free resources that provide 90% of the value of a $5,000 coach? In the next part of this deep dive, we are going to expose the industry secrets of the high-end coaching world and show you exactly how to audit a career counselor before you give them a single dime. We will break down the success fee model that is taking over the US market and why it might be the most dangerous or the most brilliant financial move you ever make. The success fee model, often referred to in the United States as an income share agreement or ISA, has fundamentally altered the landscape of career counseling in 2026. Historically, this model gained traction in coding bootcamps, but it has now bled into high-end executive career coaching. The premise is simple but psychologically complex. You pay nothing up front, and the counselor or coaching firm takes a percentage of your first year's salary, typically between 10 and 20%, once you land a role above a certain income threshold. On the surface, this aligns the counselor's incentives with your own. If you don't get hired, they don't get paid. However, as we look at the historical trends of these contracts, the fine print reveals a different story. These agreements are often legally binding financial instruments that can follow you for years. Imagine a professional named Sarah in Seattle who signs an ISA with an elite coaching firm. She currently earns $100,000 and wants to pivot into a director of operations role. The contract stipulates that the firm will receive 15% of her total compensation for the first 12 months of her new job, provided the new salary is at least $120,000. If Sarah lands a job at $150,000, she now owes that firm $22,500. This is where the math of free upfront becomes a massive long-term liability. In many cases, Sarah could have hired a world-class private coach for a flat fee of $5,000 and kept the $17,500 difference. This is a crucial step-by-step audit you must perform before signing any success fee contract. Step 1. Calculate the total potential payout based on your target salary. Step 2. Compare that to the flat fee market rate for similar services. Step 3. Check the tail of the contract. Many of these agreements state that if you find a job on your own, without the coach's help, you still owe them the percentage because you were under their guidance during the search period. This creates a high-stakes legal environment that most job seekers are not prepared to navigate. Beyond the financial structures, we need to look at the coaching audit you should perform on any professional, whether they are a $500 an hour consultant or a volunteer at a nonprofit. The first red flag is a lack of data-driven methodology. In the US, a professional career counselor should be able to explain their theoretical framework. Are they using the cognitive information processing theory? Are they practitioners of the happenstance learning theory? If they cannot explain the why behind their how, they are likely just a resume polisher masquerading as a strategist. A high-quality coach will start by auditing your marketable assets inventory. This isn't just a list of jobs. It is a granular breakdown of your technical proficiencies, your soft skill clusters, and your social capital. Let's look at a case study of a mid-career pivot in 2026. Consider David, a marketing manager in Atlanta with 15 years of experience. David feels invisible in the current job market because his skills are tied to legacy platforms. A low-quality coach will tell David to update his keywords and network more. A high-quality auditor will look at David's history and realize that while his platforms are legacy, his ability to manage multi-million-dollar budgets and cross-functional teams is a universal competency. The coach will then help David translate those competencies into the language of the 2026 economy, focusing on algorithmic oversight and remote team synchronization. This is the difference between a surface-level fix and a structural career overhaul. To avoid being sold by a private coach, you must demand to see their placement data. While they cannot promise specific outcomes due to legal and ethical guardrails, they should have historical trends of the types of roles their clients have secured. Ask for the standard deviation of their clients' salary increases. If they only talk about their biggest wins, They are using marketing tactics rather than professional counseling standards. In the US, reputable coaches often belong to organizations like the National Career Development Association, NCDA. This organization sets ethical standards that forbid the use of guaranteed language or predatory pricing. If your coach isn't aware of the NCDA Code of Ethics, that is your signal to walk away. Now let's pivot back to the high-value free resources that the coaching industry doesn't want you to rely on. In the United States, your local public library is often a gateway to premium databases that would cost an individual thousands of dollars a year. Many library systems provide free access to LinkedIn Learning, Reference USA, and even specialized industry journals through JSTOR or ProQuest. Step by step, a savvy job seeker can use these tools to perform the same market mapping that a private coach would do. For example, you can use Reference USA to find a list of all companies in a specific North American Industry Classification System, NAICS, code within a 20-mile radius of your home that have a certain number of employees and a specific revenue growth pattern. This is intelligence-led job hunting, and it costs you nothing but a library card. Furthermore, many U.S. universities offer alumni career services for life. If you graduated from a state school or a private college, you likely have access to a career office that is significantly more specialized than a general American job center. These offices often have deep relationships with specific recruiters and access to Handshake, a platform that is increasingly becoming the preferred tool for campus-to-corporate pipelines. Before you pay a private coach to help with your brand, check if your alma mater offers free portfolio reviews or mock interview sessions with industry-specific alumni. This is a major open loop in most people's career strategy. They forget the networks they have already paid for through their tuition. The real secret of the high-end coaching world is that they are often just providing accountability. In the psychology of career transitions, isolation is the #1 killer of progress. When you are searching for a job alone in your home office in 2026, the silence can be deafening. A coach provides a social contract that forces you to do the uncomfortable work of reaching out to strangers or refining your pitch. But here is the deep dive truth. You can manufacture this accountability for free. Peer-to-peer career masterminds are becoming a massive trend in the US. By forming a group of 4 or 5 professionals in similar industries and meeting weekly to share leads and critique resumes, you can replicate nearly 80% of the value of a professional coach. However, there is one area where the paid professional is almost always superior: navigating the internal politics of the C-suite. If you are aiming for a role that reports directly to a CEO or a board of directors, the free resources provided by the government or a library are simply not nuanced enough. This is where you pay for contextual intelligence. You are paying for someone who has sat in those rooms and knows that a VP of strategy role at a tech firm in San Francisco requires a completely different psychological profile than the same title at a manufacturing firm in Ohio. As we continue this masterclass, we have to address the algorithm gap. In 2026, your resume is almost never read by a human first. It is parsed, scored, and ranked by a machine. Both free and paid counselors claim to have the key to beating the system. But the reality of the American ATS landscape is far more complex than just matching keywords. In the next part, we are going to tear apart the myths of resume optimization. We will look at the specific 2026 software that US recruiters are using and show you the one-page strategy that is currently causing a massive controversy in the HR world. Is the traditional resume dead? Or have we just been taught to write it the wrong way for the last 20 years? We're going to look at the data that shows why your skills section might actually be hurting your chances of an interview. The modern American Applicant Tracking System, or ATS, has evolved into a sophisticated gatekeeper that uses large language models and semantic search to evaluate candidates. By 2026, the majority of Fortune 500 companies in the United States have moved beyond simple keyword matching and are now using contextual scoring algorithms. This is the first place where the advice from a free career center often diverges sharply from that of a high-end paid strategist. At a public workforce center, you are frequently taught the keyword loading method. This involves scanning a job description and ensuring those exact nouns and verbs appear in your skills section. However, historical trends from recent hiring cycles show that this brute force approach can actually trigger a spam filter response in modern HR software. If your skills section is a dense block of 30 buzzwords without context, the algorithm may downrank your profile for low information density. Imagine a candidate named Robert in Denver applying for a senior cybersecurity analyst role. A free resource might tell Robert to list cloud security, zero trust architecture, and incident response as bullet points. A paid career counselor, however, will advocate for a contextual integration strategy. Instead of a standalone list, Robert is coached to embed those skills within a narrative of impact metrics. Step by step, this looks like transforming a skill into a proof point. Instead of just listing incident response, the resume should read, architected a multi-layered incident response framework that reduced mean time to remediation by 40% across a decentralized network of 5,000 nodes. This provides the semantic weight that 2026 algorithms are looking for. They aren't just looking for the word. They are looking for the environment in which that word exists. There is a massive controversy currently brewing in the US recruitment space regarding the one-page strategy. For decades, the gold standard for anyone with less than 10 years of experience was the single-page resume. Free services often dogmatically stick to this rule to ensure quick scannability for human recruiters. But here is the deep dive reality. As machines take over the initial screening, the length penalty is disappearing. In fact, many high-level career coaches are now recommending a hybrid two-page masterclass format. This isn't fluff. It is about providing enough data for the AI to build a comprehensive talent persona of you. If you truncate your experience to fit one page, you are essentially starving the algorithm of the data it needs to rank you. Let's look at a case study of a mid-level manager named Elena in Philadelphia. Elena had 15 years of experience in retail operations, but wanted to move into corporate logistics. Her free career advisor insisted she cut her first 5 years of experience to keep it to one page. This resulted in the ATS failing to recognize her foundational experience in supply chain management that occurred early in her career. When Elena hired a private strategist, they expanded her resume to 2 pages, using the extra space to create a technical competency matrix and a leadership philosophy section. The result was a significantly higher search match score because the software finally had enough data points to connect her past roles to the new requirements. This brings us to the skills section paradox. Data suggests that 2026 hiring platforms are increasingly ignoring the self-reported skills section, the part where you rate yourself 4 out of 5 stars in Python or project management. Recruiters call this dead space. Instead, they are prioritizing verifiable skill application. A paid counselor will push you to replace your skills list with a project portfolio or a case study appendix. For example, if you claim to be an expert in change management, a top-tier coach will have you write a 3-sentence summary of a specific organizational pivot you led, including the initial friction, the strategy used, and the quantifiable outcome. This is high-fidelity evidence that a generalized public counselor simply doesn't have the time to help you develop. We also have to discuss the visual bias of modern resumes. Many free online resume builders use flashy graphics, progress bars, and dual-column layouts. While these look modern to the human eye, they are often an ATS nightmare. Many US-based hiring systems still struggle to parse nonlinear text. If your contact information is in a sidebar or your work history is in a table, the software might scramble the data, making you appear unqualified, simply because the machine couldn't read your start dates. A professional coach will often provide you with a clean architecture template, a document that looks boring to a human but is highly legible to a machine. This is the boring resume secret of the 6-figure job market. The more standard the formatting, the more likely you are to pass the initial digital screen. Step by step, the high-resolution resume audit involves 3 distinct passes. Pass 1 is the machine read, stripping away all formatting to ensure the text flow is logical. Pass 2 is the human scan, ensuring that your value proposition, the summary of what you can do for the company, is visible within the top third of the first page. Pass 3 is the competitive benchmarking, comparing your document against the resumes of people currently holding the job you want. Free services usually stop at Pass 2. Paid services spend the majority of their time on Pass 3, using specialized tools to simulate the ranking process of specific companies. The cost of getting this wrong is staggering. In the United States, the ghosting rate, where candidates never hear back after an application, is at an all-time high in 2026. Often, this isn't because the candidate is unqualified. It's because their digital twin, the version of them created by the ATS, is a low-resolution, fragmented mess. A free career center will help you avoid bad English and bad formatting. A paid counselor will help you build a high-resolution persona. However, we must address the over-optimization trap. There is a historical trend of candidates trying so hard to please the algorithm that they end up sounding like a robot. When that resume finally reaches a human recruiter in an office in New York or Chicago, it feels cold. The human recruiter is looking for cultural add and emotional intelligence. This is the final mile of the resume journey. A free service might give you a list of action verbs to make your writing sound more dynamic. A private coach will conduct narrative therapy with you to find the human hook, the story of why you do what you do. Imagine a scenario where a nurse named Michael in San Diego is trying to move into hospital administration. The ATS sees his certifications and his years of service, but the human recruiter wants to know if Michael can handle the high-pressure political environment of a boardroom. A paid coach will help Michael craft a career story that bridges the gap between the bedside and the boardroom, using specific anecdotes that demonstrate diplomatic leadership. This is something a standardized government form cannot capture. As we move forward, we have to look at the LinkedIn dimension. Your resume no longer exists in a vacuum. In 2026, the first thing a US recruiter does after the ATS gives you a high score is cross-reference your resume with your LinkedIn profile. If there is a consistency gap, if your dates don't match or your tone is radically different, you are immediately flagged. In the next part, we are going to dive into the LinkedIn Power User Framework. We will look at the algorithm-first profile settings that most people leave on default, and the passive inbound strategy that can make recruiters come to you, rather than you chasing them. We will also expose the endorsement cartels and why your recommendations section might be the most overvalued part of your profile. Is social proof still the king of the US job market? Or has technical verification taken its throne? In the 2026 digital economy, your LinkedIn profile is no longer a static digital resume. It has become your professional digital twin. In the United States, recruiters are now using sophisticated identity verification layers to ensure that the person they see on paper matches the person who exists in the professional social sphere. This is a critical junction where the strategies provided by free community college career centers and high-end paid consultants diverge into two completely different philosophies of social capital. The free guidance you receive at a public workforce center generally focuses on profile completion. They will walk you through the basics: adding a professional photo, writing a headline that matches your job title, and filling out your work history. This is the static model. It ensures you exist in the database, but it does nothing to ensure you are discovered by the algorithms that drive 90% of modern US hiring. Contrast this with the active signal strategy employed by elite paid career strategists. In this model, the goal is not just to be searchable, but to be unavoidable. Imagine a professional named Chloe in Nashville who is trying to break into the booming health tech sector as a project manager. A free advisor might suggest she list her certifications and use a headline like "Experienced Project Manager Seeking New Opportunities." A paid strategist, however, will view that headline as wasted real estate. They will coach Chloe to use a value-first headline, like "Scaling Health Tech Infrastructure 15% Reduction in Deployment Latency PMP Certified." Step by step, the paid coach will then move to the About section, the most underutilized part of the LinkedIn platform. Instead of a generic summary, they will help Chloe craft a narrative hook that addresses a specific industry pain point, such as helping hospitals navigate the 2026 interoperability mandates without disrupting patient care. This leads us into the algorithm-first settings that most US professionals ignore. There is a hidden toggle in LinkedIn's backend called Signals to Recruiters. While free services might mention checking the Open to Work box, a paid counselor will dive into the skills assessment data. By 2026, LinkedIn has heavily prioritized verified skills. These are short, proctored quizzes that prove you actually know the software or methodology you claim to master. Historical trends show that profiles with at least 3 verified badges are prioritized in recruiter search results by a factor of 4. A paid coach will identify the specific 3 badges that carry the most weight in your target industry, perhaps Agile methodology, Tableau, and Python, and will provide resources to ensure you pass those assessments on the first try. Now let's expose the endorsement cartels and the recommendation paradox. Many people believe that having 50 endorsements for leadership or communication from friends and family helps their ranking. In reality, the 2026 LinkedIn algorithm has largely depreciated peer endorsements because they are easily manipulated. Instead, the system now looks for quality of recommender. A single recommendation from a former supervisor who has a top voice badge or a high social selling index, SSI, is worth more than 100 endorsements from junior-level peers. A high-end career counselor will help you draft reciprocal recommendation requests. This is a surgical process where you reach out to high-value former colleagues with a pre-written draft that highlights the specific technical competencies you want to emphasize for your next role. It removes the friction for the recommender and ensures the social proof aligns perfectly with your technical persona. This brings us to the concept of passive inbound strategy. In the US, the most desirable jobs are often filled before they are even posted on public boards. To access this inbound flow, your profile must act as a magnet. One step-by-step technique used by paid strategists is the content-to-context loop. They will coach you to spend 15 minutes a day engaging with the top 50 influencers in your target field. But you aren't just liking posts. You are providing insightful commentary. When Chloe in Nashville leaves a comment on a major health tech CEO's post about the nuances of 2026 data privacy laws, she is triggering the algorithm to associate her profile with that specific high-value topic. Over a period of 3 to 6 months, this active engagement moves her profile from the bottom of the search stack to the suggested candidates sidebar that recruiters see every morning. However, we must also address the privacy-security balance, which is a major concern for U.S. professionals in 2026. Free services often tell you to connect with everyone to grow your network. Paid strategists warn against this. They advocate for a vetted network approach. Each low-quality connection, such as career growth bots or unrelated industry profiles, actually dilutes your network relevance score. If you are a logistics expert but 50% of your network is in retail, the algorithm becomes confused about where to categorize you. A paid coach will help you perform a network audit, removing irrelevant connections and focusing on second-degree reach into your target companies. This is the quality over quantity shift that defines high-tier career management. Imagine an imagine-if scenario. Imagine if you could see exactly what a recruiter sees when they search for someone with your title. This is the recruiter seat perspective. Paid coaches often have recruiter light accounts which they use to show their clients exactly how they appear in a search. They might show you that because you didn't include a specific location preference or remote work tag, you are being filtered out of 90% of the roles you want. They show you the spotlight feature, which highlights candidates who have a company connection or who have engaged with the brand recently. A free service simply doesn't have the budget to provide this behind-the-curtain look. But is technical verification truly taking the throne from social proof? In 2026, the answer is a hybrid integration. In the US market, your technical badges get you into the search results, but your social proof, your stories, your recommendations, and your thought leadership gets you the inbound message. A case study of an engineer named David in Seattle illustrates this perfectly. David had all the technical certifications, but his profile was cold. He was getting 0 recruiter pings. After working with a paid branding expert to overhaul his featured section with video snippets of him explaining complex architectural decisions, his inbound rate increased from 0 to 3 per week. The technical got him to the door. The human opened it. The cost of a dead profile is the invisible opportunity cost. You don't know which recruiters looked at your profile and decided not to click because your banner was a generic blue background or your activity feed was empty. While a free career center can give you a checklist, a paid strategist provides a dynamic roadmap. They understand that in the US, LinkedIn is no longer a site. It is an auction house for talent, and you need to know how to bid. As we conclude this deep dive into the digital dimension, we have to face the most intimidating part of the entire career journey: the human interview. In 2026, the interview process has undergone a radical transformation. It is no longer just about answering questions. It is about behavioral performance. In the next part, we are going to break down the biometric interview trends in the US and the psychological framing techniques that the top 1% of earners use to dominate the room. We will look at why the STAR method is being replaced by the DRE framework and how you can use micro-expressions to build instant rapport with even the most stone-faced executive. Are you ready to move from candidate to consultant during the interview? We are going to show you the power flip technique that changes the entire power dynamic of the room in under 60 seconds. By the year 2026, the American interview landscape has shifted from a simple conversation into a high-stakes psychological evaluation. The traditional "tell me about yourself" opener is being phased out by US-based firms in favor of strategic problem-solving simulations. This is where the divide between free public assistance and premium career coaching becomes a chasm. If you visit a local community career center, you will likely be coached on the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. For 20 years, this has been the gold standard. It is a reliable framework for answering behavioral questions, and it certainly helps you avoid rambling. However, historical trends in 2024 and 2025 indicated that high-level recruiters at firms in Manhattan, Palo Alto, and Chicago are becoming STAR blind. They have heard thousands of STAR stories, and they can tell when a candidate is simply filling in the blanks of a preset template. This is why top-tier paid career strategists have shifted their clients to the DARE framework: discovery, analysis, resolution, and evolution. While STAR is retrospective, focusing on what you did, DARE is perspective and consultative. Imagine a candidate named Marcus in 2026, applying for a senior operations role at a logistics giant in Memphis. A free career center would have him talk about a time he fixed a warehouse delay. Using DARE, Marcus is coached to start with discovery, how he identified a systemic inefficiency that others missed. Then analysis, the data-driven process he used to diagnose the root cause. Resolution is the action taken, but the most important part is evolution, how he ensured the problem would never return and how he grew the organization's capability as a result. This framework positions Marcus not as an employee following orders, but as a consultant fixing a business. This leads us to the power flip technique, a psychological maneuver that can change the entire energy of a room in under 60 seconds. In the US, the power dynamic in an interview is usually tilted toward the employer. The candidate is asking for a job. A paid strategist will teach you how to flip this dynamic during the very first phase of the interview. Step 1 is the situational transition. Instead of waiting for the end of the interview to ask questions, a power flip involves asking a high-level strategic question within the first 5 minutes. For example, Marcus might say, "Before we dive into my history, I've been analyzing your last quarterly report regarding the shift toward autonomous last-mile delivery. In your view, is the primary hurdle currently a technical infrastructure issue or a local regulatory one?" Suddenly, the interviewer is the one providing information, and Marcus has moved into the role of a peer. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about demonstrating immediate value. Case studies from executive search firms in 2026 show that candidates who use this technique are perceived as having 30% higher leadership potential than those who follow the standard Q&A format. Free services, which are designed for broad-spectrum employment, rarely teach this because it requires a deep understanding of industry-specific business intelligence that a generalist counselor simply doesn't have the bandwidth to research. Now, we must address the most controversial trend in 2026 American hiring: biometric and AI-augmented interviewing. Many large U.S. corporations are now using AI-driven platforms like HireVue 3.0, which analyze not just your words, but your micro-expressions, your vocal tone, and even your linguistic complexity. If you are prepping with a free resource, they might tell you to smile more or look at the camera. This is surface-level advice. A paid career coach, often one with a background in industrial organizational psychology, will perform a micro-expression audit with you. They will record your practice sessions and use proprietary software to show you where your vocal shaking indicates a lack of confidence, or where your eye darting suggests you are struggling to remember a scripted answer. Imagine if you were being interviewed by an AI that could detect cognitive load. If you spend too long trying to recall a STAR story, the AI flags you as lower proficiency. A paid coach will help you neural map your career, so your best stories are on the tip of your tongue, allowing you to maintain a low-stress profile during the digital scan. This level of preparation is what separates the potential outcomes of a $60,000 salary from a $160,000 salary. In the US market, your ability to remain calm under the digital gaze is becoming a core competency. We also have to consider the consultant mindset versus the applicant mindset. A free career center is built to help applicants. They focus on compliance, making sure your resume is formatted correctly and your suit is pressed. A paid strategist focuses on consultancy. They help you identify the internal pain of the hiring manager. Step by step, they will have you research the person interviewing you, not just their LinkedIn, but their recent projects, the challenges their specific department is facing, and the corporate culture sentiment on platforms like Glassdoor or Blind. When you walk into that room, you aren't there to get a job, You are there to offer a solution. Let's look at a case study of a woman named Elena in 2026, pivoting from education into corporate training in Austin, Texas. Her free advisor told her to highlight her teaching skills. Her paid coach told her to ignore the word teaching entirely. Instead, they focused on human capital optimization and skill gap mitigation. The coach helped her build a 90-day roadmap for the company. During the interview, Elena didn't just answer questions. She pulled out a one-page strategic proposal for how she would overhaul their onboarding process in the first 3 months. This physical evidence of value is a classic paid coaching move that creates a psychological debt in the interviewer. They start to feel that they can't afford not to hire her. However, it is important to note that for many entry-level or hourly roles in the US, the power flip or the 90-day roadmap can backfire. If you are applying for a role that requires strict adherence to protocol, being too consultative can make you seem unmanageable. This is why the social IQ of your guidance is so important. A free career counselor is often better at identifying when you need to be a steady hand rather than a disruptor. They understand the local labor market nuances for roles in healthcare, manufacturing, and retail where reliability is the #1 metric for success. But for those aiming for the upper echelons of the US economy, the interviewer's mirror technique is another tool often found in the paid coach's arsenal. This involves subtle linguistic mirroring, adopting the specific terminology and cadence of the interviewer to build instant rapport. If the interviewer uses the word synergy, you use synergy. If they speak in short, punchy sentences, you do the same. This triggers a biological response called homophily, the tendency of individuals to associate and bond with similar others. It is a subtle, high-level social hack that requires hours of practice to look natural. The cost of a failed interview in 2026 isn't just the missed paycheck, it's the blacklist risk. In the US, many large companies use centralized talent databases. If you perform poorly in an interview at one branch, that data can follow you to every other branch in the country. A free mock interview at a library is better than nothing, but a paid session with the former Fortune 500 recruiter can save you from a mistake that could lock you out of an entire corporate ecosystem for years. As we look toward the final steps of the career journey, we must talk about the most uncomfortable part: the money. In 2026, salary transparency laws have swept across the United States, but the negotiation gap is wider than ever. Just because a job post lists a range doesn't mean you'll get the top of it. In the next part, we are going to dive into the Vegas-style negotiation tactics that paid coaches use to secure $20,000 to $50,000 in hidden equity. We'll show you why the first person to say a number in an American boardroom usually loses, and the magic phrase that can force a recruiter to reveal their hard ceiling without you ever showing your cards. Are you ready to stop accepting and start dictating your worth? We're going to look at the data that shows why your current salary is the biggest lie in the US job market. By March 2026, salary transparency laws have transformed from a coastal trend in New York and California into a nationwide standard across the United States. However, this has created a new, more complex psychological battlefield. While the salary range is now often visible on the job posting, the negotiation gap, the distance between the bottom of that range and the top, is where most American professionals lose tens of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. A free career counselor at a state-funded center will typically advise you to aim for the middle of the posted range to remain competitive and avoid pricing yourself out. This is safe advice designed to ensure re-employment. But for a high-tier career, safe is the most expensive word in the English language. Historical trends show that the first number mentioned in a negotiation acts as an anchor, a psychological weight that defines the entire conversation. If you are the first to speak a number, you have essentially set the ceiling for your own value. Paid career strategists teach a Vegas-style approach to this standoff. The goal is to force the recruiter to reveal the specific budgetary allocation for the role before you ever commit to a figure. Imagine a professional named Jordan in Chicago, interviewing for a senior marketing director role. The range on the posting is $140,000 to $180,000. When the recruiter asks, "What are your salary expectations?" Jordan is coached by his private strategist to use the relational pivot. Instead of giving a number, Jordan says, "I am much more focused on the total impact of the role and the growth trajectory of the firm. Based on your internal benchmarking for this specific level of responsibility, what is the total compensation package you have budgeted for the ideal candidate?" This isn't just a clever line, It is a diagnostic tool. In the US, companies often have soft ceilings and hard ceilings. The posted range might stop at $180,000, but for a Tier 1 candidate, there may be an additional $20,000 in discretionary sign-on bonuses or performance equity that is never listed publicly. A free service simply isn't equipped to help you hunt for these hidden buckets. A paid coach, however, will spend hours researching the specific company's recent SEC filings or Glassdoor real-time salary reports from 2025 to see if they have a history of exceeding their posted ranges for top talent. Let's look at the current salary lie. For decades, U.S. employers asked for your salary history to determine your next offer. While many states have now banned this practice, the expectation question is the new loophole. If you tell a recruiter you currently make $90,000, they will likely anchor your new offer around $95,000 or $100,000, even if the role is worth $130,000. A paid strategist will perform a market correction audit with you. This involves decoupling your current earnings from your market value. Step by step, they help you build a value portfolio that justifies a 60% jump. They teach you that in 2026, you are not being paid for what you did yesterday. You are being paid for the problem you are solving tomorrow. Consider a case study of a software architect named Liam in Seattle. Liam was earning $160,000, but knew his specialized knowledge in decentralized AI infrastructure was worth much more. His free alumni advisor told him that a 20% raise was industry standard. His paid executive coach, however, pointed out that the replacement cost for Liam's specific skill set was nearly $300,000 because the talent pool in the US was so shallow. By using replacement value as his negotiation lever, pointing out the cost of a 6-month search and the lost revenue of an unfilled seat, Liam secured a package of $240,000 plus a performance-based equity kicker. This brings us to hidden equity and the total reward strategy. In the United States, your base salary is often the least flexible part of the budget because it affects internal pay equity and future raises. However, items like retention bonuses, professional development budgets, home office stipends, and extra vacation accrual are often sitting in different accounting buckets. A paid career coach will provide you with a negotiation checklist that includes over 15 different levers you can pull. If the company hits a hard ceiling on the base salary, a savvy negotiator moves immediately to variable compensation. For example, Jordan in Chicago might negotiate a 6-month review clause, where a 10% raise is triggered automatically if he hits specific KPIs. This is a success-based outcome that lowers the risk for the employer while maximizing the potential for the employee. Step by step, the final offer audit involves 3 levels of scrutiny. Pass 1 is the baseline. Does the base salary cover your cost of living in a 2026 inflationary environment? Pass 2 is the benefit multiplier. Is the 401k match, health insurance premium, and HSA contribution worth an additional $10,000 or $15,000? Pass 3 is the lifestyle leverage. Does the role offer the flexibility that reduces your personal expenses, like commuting costs or childcare needs? Free services usually stop at Pass 1. They want you to say yes, so they can mark you as a successful placement in their government reporting. A paid strategist wants you to be willing to say no unless Pass 3 is met. The psychological toll of negotiation in the US cannot be overstated. We are culturally conditioned to avoid conflict, especially regarding money. This is where desperation bias ruins more careers than a lack of skills ever could. If you are unemployed or feeling stuck, your body language and vocal tone in a negotiation often scream, "I need this." A paid coach acts as your emotional proxy. They provide the external validation you need to hold the line. They might tell you to wait 24 hours before responding to an offer, a simple tactic that signals to the recruiter that you are evaluating other options, even if you aren't. This strategic silence is one of the most powerful tools in the American boardroom. However, we must address the gender and minority wage gap, which remains a persistent issue in the U.S. labor market of 2026. Data shows that women and minorities are less likely to negotiate and more likely to be penalized when they do. This is a high-risk area where generalized advice can be harmful. A paid counselor who specializes in inclusive negotiation will teach specific communal framing techniques. Instead of saying, "I want more money," a candidate is coached to say, "In order for me to fully dedicate myself to the high-stakes goals we've discussed, and to ensure I am performing at the level the company expects, I want to ensure the compensation is aligned with the top-tier market rates for this role. This frames the request as a benefit to the company, rather than a personal demand. Imagine an imagine-if scenario. Imagine if you knew the exact dollar amount the person who held the job before you was making. In 2026, through crowdsourced data platforms and professional networks, a paid strategist can often find this information. They treat your salary negotiation like a real estate transaction, using comps to prove your worth. If the previous person was making $150,000 and the company is offering you $130,000 for more responsibility, the paid strategist gives you the evidentiary framework to call out that discrepancy professionally. As we move toward the final stages of this masterclass, we have to look beyond the signing date. Getting the job and the money is only the beginning. In the high-pressure U.S. economy of 2026, the first 90 days are a probationary period where your professional reputation is cemented. In the next part, we are going to dive into the onboarding acceleration strategies that the top 5% of earners use to become unfireable. We will look at the political mapping of a new office and how to identify the shadow power brokers who actually run the company. Are you ready to move from being a new hire to an internal influencer? We're going to show you why the coffee chat is the most important meeting on your calendar and the 3 questions that will reveal the unwritten rules of your new workplace. The transition from being a candidate to a high-performing employee in the 2026 American workforce is often more treacherous than the job search itself. In the United States, historical trends indicate that nearly 40% of new hires at the executive and management levels fail within the first 18 months. This failure is rarely due to a lack of technical skill. It is almost always a failure of cultural integration and political mapping. This is the final frontier where a free career service typically ends its journey, leaving you at the front door of your new office. Conversely, this is where a premium paid career strategist earns their highest ROI by providing onboarding acceleration support. Imagine a professional named David, who has just accepted a director of engineering role at a fintech firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. A free career center would celebrate this as a success metric and close his file. But for David, the real work is just beginning. In 2026, the speed of business in the US requires you to be net positive within your first 90 days. A paid strategist will work with David to create a 90-day impact blueprint. This step-by-step document isn't about doing your job, it's about auditing the shadow power brokers of the organization. These are the individuals who don't necessarily have the highest titles, but hold the keys to the company's internal social capital. Step 1 of this blueprint is the relational audit. A paid strategist will coach David to spend his first 2 weeks not in deep work, but in high-intent coffee chats. In the U.S. corporate culture, these 30-minute informal meetings are the most powerful tool for information gathering. But you don't just talk about the weather. David is coached to ask 3 specific questions designed to reveal the unwritten rules of the workplace. Question 1. What is the one thing that someone in my role could do that would be considered a cultural felony here? Question 2. Who are the 3 people in this organization whose work everyone respects, regardless of their department? Question 3. If you were in my shoes, what is the invisible problem you would tackle first to gain the team's trust? This surgical networking allows David to map out the internal political grid. In many U.S. firms, the official organizational chart is a lie. The real decisions might be made in a specific Slack channel or by a veteran administrative assistant who has seen 5 CEOs come and go. A paid coach helps you navigate this shadow org chart to ensure you don't accidentally align yourself with a declining faction within the company. This is risk mitigation at its finest. If you alienate a key stakeholder in month 1, it can take years to recover that professional capital. Consider a case study of a woman named Maria, who transitioned into a senior product manager role in Silicon Valley in early 2026. Maria's paid strategist insisted she perform a stakeholder sentiment analysis before her first major presentation. This involved Maria meeting individually with the heads of sales, engineering, and marketing to understand their specific pain points regarding the product roadmap. By the time Maria stood up to present, she had already incorporated their feedback and addressed their concerns. The potential outcome was not just a successful presentation, but the immediate perception of Maria as a collaborative leader. This level of pre-wire diplomacy is a hallmark of high-tier career coaching that generalist public services simply do not touch. We must also discuss the feedback loop paradox in the American workplace. U.S. managers are often culturally conditioned to avoid direct negative feedback during the first few months of a new hire's tenure to keep morale high. This can be dangerous for the employee, as they may be making micro mistakes that are quietly being noted but not corrected. A paid career coach acts as an external auditor. They will review your communications, your project updates, and your internal branding to spot these errors before they become macro problems. They might point out that your tone in emails is too command and control for a company that prides itself on flat hierarchy, or that you are failing to manage up by not providing enough visibility to your superior. Step by step, the acceleration framework involves the early win strategy. In the first 30 days, you must identify one project that is low effort but high visibility. This isn't about a massive structural change. It's about a quick fix that solves a headache for your immediate team. For example, if the team's weekly reporting process is a chaotic mess of spreadsheets, David might implement a simple automation script that saves everyone 2 hours a week. This value add creates a psychological surplus of goodwill. A paid coach will help you identify this opportunity by looking at the small frictions that everyone else has simply accepted as just the way things are. Furthermore, in the 2026 U.S. labor market, internal personal branding is as important as your external LinkedIn presence. You are constantly being evaluated for your promotability. A paid strategist will coach you on the art of the internal update. Instead of just listing tasks you've completed, you learn to frame your updates in terms of business objectives. You don't say, "I finished the audit." You say, "The completion of the audit has identified a 5% redundancy in our cloud spend, which we are now redirecting toward our Q3 innovation lab." This shifts the perception of you from a task doer to a value driver. Let's look at an imagine-if scenario. Imagine if you could attend your own performance review before it actually happened. A high-end paid coach will conduct simulated performance reviews with you at the 60-day mark. They will take on the persona of a critical manager and push you on your deliverables and your cultural fit. This stress testing allows you to course correct in month 3, rather than waiting for your official 6-month review when it might be too late to change the narrative. For professionals using free services, the advice often stops at be a good employee and work hard. While that is foundational, it is insufficient in the high-volatility environment of 2026. Hard work is the entry fee, but strategic positioning is the growth engine. Free resources are excellent at getting you to the starting line, but they lack the post-placement support that ensures you stay in the race. This is why many U.S. professionals now view career counseling not as a one-time job search cost, but as an ongoing career maintenance expense, similar to how an athlete employs a coach year-round, not just during the off-season. The cost of cultural misfit is devastating. Beyond the loss of salary, a short tenure on your resume can raise red flags for future U.S. recruiters who worry about job hopping or performance issues. By investing in the first 90 days, you are essentially buying resume insurance. You are ensuring that this career move becomes a long-term success case study rather than a warning lesson. As we approach the final chapters of this masterclass, we have to look at the long game. In a world where the average American will change careers, not just jobs 5 to 7 times, how do you build a future-proof professional identity? In the next part, we are going to dive into the skill stacking revolution. We will look at why generalists are making a massive comeback in the U.S. economy and the 3-year pivot strategy that ensures you are never caught off guard by an industry shift. Are you ready to stop being a passenger in your career and become the architect of your professional destiny? We're going to look at the data that shows why your college major is officially irrelevant in 2026 and what has replaced it as the ultimate currency of competence. In the United States labor market of 2026, the traditional weight of a college major has undergone a massive structural devaluation. Historical trends over the last 5 years show that nearly 60% of college graduates are working in fields completely unrelated to their undergraduate degrees. We have entered the era of the skill stacking revolution, where the ultimate currency of competence is no longer a static diploma, but a dynamic portfolio of interconnected micro-skills. This shift is the primary reason why a free career counselor from a traditional background might offer you outdated advice, while a high-end paid strategist will push you toward a 3-year pivot strategy. Imagine a professional named Alex in 2026, living in Raleigh, North Carolina. Alex graduated with a degree in sociology in 2018 and has spent the last 8 years working in nonprofit program coordination. A free career service looking at Alex's resume would likely steer him towards similar roles in the public sector, or perhaps human resources, focusing on his people skills. This is linear thinking. A paid career strategist, however, looks at Alex as a systematic generalist. They see that his sociology background, combined with years of managing complex program budgets and coordinating diverse volunteer teams, makes him a prime candidate for operational strategy in a tech-driven logistics firm. Step by step, the skill stacking process involves 3 distinct layers. Layer 1 is your core domain, the primary field you know best, like Alex's program management. Layer 2 is technical literacy, the ability to interface with the tools of the 2026 economy, such as low-code automation, data visualization, or AI prompt engineering. Layer 3 is agile soft skills, high-level negotiation, cross-cultural empathy, and crisis management. A paid coach will help you identify the missing link in your stack. For Alex, that might mean spending 3 months earning a verified technical badge in SQL and Power BI. Suddenly, he isn't just a nonprofit worker. He is a data-driven operations specialist. This stacking increases his market value not by a small percentage, but by an exponential factor. Case studies in the mid-2020s have shown that specialized generalists, people who have deep knowledge in one area but can speak the language of 3 others, are the most resilient workers in the US economy. This is because they are anti-fragile. When an industry like traditional commercial real estate collapses, a skill stacker can pivot into urban planning or remote infrastructure management within weeks. A free counselor often lacks the deep industry insight to help you build these bridges. They are trained to look at what is, whereas a paid coach is trained to look at what could be. This brings us to the 3-year pivot strategy. In the high-velocity American economy, staying in one specialized lane for more than 3 years without adding a new layer to your skill stack is a form of professional obsolescence. A paid career strategist will help you build a rolling roadmap. This involves a skill audit every 12 months. Imagine if every year you sat down with a professional who looked at the geopolitical and technological shifts in the US and said, "Your project management skills are great, but the market is moving toward decentralized governance. We need to add distributed team leadership to your portfolio this year." This proactive approach ensures you are never the victim of a sudden industry shift. Let's look at an imagine-if scenario. Imagine if you viewed your career not as a ladder, but as a Lego set. Each job, each certification, and each project is a new brick. In 2026, recruiters at top firms like Amazon, Google, and Tesla are using semantic skill mapping to find candidates. They aren't searching for mechanical engineer. They are searching for problem solver with CAD, 3D printing, and biomimetic design experience. If your bricks are all the same color and shape, you are easily replaceable. But if you have a unique skill stack, you become a category of one. The data in the United States currently shows a massive skills gap in the middle management layer. Companies are desperate for people who can bridge the gap between technical execution and business strategy. This is where generalism makes its comeback. While the early 2010s were about hyperspecialization, the 2020s are about synthesizing competence. A paid coach will help you find the intersection of your interests and market demand. They might take a marketing professional and turn them into a growth architect by adding a layer of behavioral economics and data science to their stack. However, we must address the certification trap. In 2026, the US market is flooded with thousands of online certificates that are essentially worthless. This is a high-risk area for job seekers. A free career service might simply point you to a list of trending courses. A paid strategist will perform a validation audit. They will tell you which specific certifications are actually respected by hiring managers in New York versus Los Angeles, and which ones are just CV fluff. They look at the historical trends of which training programs actually lead to a salary lift, and which ones are a waste of time and money. Another critical component of the long game is the social capital stack. In the US, your network is your early warning system. A paid coach doesn't just tell you to network, they teach you network engineering. This involves a step-by-step process of building weak ties across diverse industries. According to the strength of weak ties theory, most people get their biggest breaks from people they only know casually, not their close friends. A paid coach will have you reach out to adjacent professionals, people who do something totally different but in a related ecosystem. If you are in insurance, you should be talking to people in health tech and climate risk modeling. This cross-pollination is what allows for a quantum leap in your career. The psychological benefit of this architectural approach to your career is the elimination of job search anxiety. When you know exactly how your skills stack together and you have a roadmap for your next pivot, a layoff isn't a catastrophe, it's an accelerant. You already have the raw materials for your next version. This is the ultimate potential outcome of high-tier career guidance, moving from a state of reaction to a state of design. As we approach the final part of this masterclass, we have to talk about the investment threshold. We've compared the free and the paid, the public and the private, the machine and the human. But how do you make the final decision? When is the exact moment you should stop doing your career and start paying for professional intervention? In the final part, we are going to give you the Career ROI Calculator, a step-by-step formula to determine if a $5,000 investment in yourself will yield a $50,000 return. We will also reveal the hybrid path, the secret way to get the best of both worlds for nearly zero cost. Are you ready to stop guessing and start calculating? We're going to look at the final audit that will tell you exactly which path is the best option for your specific 2026 reality. To make the final decision in the 2026 American labor market, you have to move beyond emotional impulses and toward a cold, hard calculation of ROI, or return on investment. We call this the Career ROI Calculator. In the United States, we are often taught that education is an inherent good, regardless of cost, but in a professional context, every dollar spent on guidance must be measured against its potential to increase your lifetime earnings. To perform this final audit for your own life, we have to look at the 3-year horizon. If a paid career coach costs you $5,000 today, but they help you secure a role that pays $15,000 more per year, your break-even point is reached in just 4 months of employment. Over a 3-year period, that $5,000 investment yields a $45,000 gross return, or a 900% ROI. Historical trends from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and independent workforce surveys in 2025 suggest that the opportunity cost of a prolonged job search is the single greatest destroyer of wealth for the American middle class. If you spend 6 months searching for a job on your own using only free resources, and your target salary is $100,000, you have effectively paid $50,000 in lost wages for that free search. This is the paradox of the DIY approach. Step by step, you must calculate your burn rate, the cost of every month you remain in a stagnant or low-paying role. If that cost exceeds the price of a professional strategist who can shorten your search by 2 months, the paid option becomes the mathematically superior choice. However, for a professional named Chris in 2026, living in a high-cost area like Chicago but working in a low-margin industry like nonprofit management, a $5,000 fee might be an insurmountable barrier. This is where the hybrid path comes into play. The hybrid path is the secret strategy used by the most resourceful U.S. professionals to get 90% of the value of elite coaching for nearly zero cost. Step 1 of the hybrid path is the institutional hack. You utilize the free American Job Centers or university alumni offices for the bulk labor, resume formatting, basic ATS checks, and initial skill assessments. You let the government-funded systems handle the standardized work. Step 2 is targeted micro-consulting. Instead of hiring a coach for a full 6-month package, you hire a specialist for a single, high-stakes power hour. In the 2026 gig economy, many of the top career strategists in the U.S. offer standalone sessions for specific tasks, like a salary negotiation simulation or a C-suite biometric mock interview. By doing the foundational work for free and only paying for the surgical strikes, Chris can get the elite edge for $500 instead of $5,000. This is tactical investment, rather than broad spending. Let's look at an imagine-if scenario. Imagine if you could see the trajectory map of your career, based on your current path versus a professionally guided path. A case study from a 2025 cohort of mid-level project managers in the Midwest showed that those who engaged in continuous guidance, meaning they met with a counselor at least twice a year, even when they weren't looking for a job, saw a 22% higher salary growth over 5 years compared to those who only sought help when they were unemployed. This proves that career counseling in the U.S. is shifting from an emergency room service to a preventative health service. To determine your specific best option for 2026, you must pass your situation through the complexity filter. If your goal is linear growth, meaning you want the same job at a slightly better company, the free path is your best option. The U.S. public infrastructure is perfectly designed for linear movement. But if your goal is nonlinear pivot, changing industries, jumping seniority levels, or rebranding after a public professional setback, the paid path is almost always necessary. The public system is a common carrier. It moves everyone at the same speed. A private strategist is a custom rocket. It is built specifically for your weight, your fuel, and your destination. Another critical factor in the final audit is your network maturity. In the United States, if you already have a robust, high-value network of mentors and peers, you may not need a paid coach. You can crowdsource your guidance through mastermind groups. But if you are an outsider, someone moving to a new city like Austin or Nashville, or someone who is the first in their family to reach the corporate level, you are starting with a social capital deficit. In this case, a paid coach isn't just a counselor. They are a broker. They are selling you access to their refined methodologies and their understanding of the invisible codes of the American upper middle class. Step by step, the decision matrix for the 2026 U.S. professional looks like this. First, assess your time to value. If you need a result in under 90 days, pay for the expertise. Second, assess your complexity score. If you are changing more than 2 variables, e.g. new industry and new role, pay for the roadmap. Third, assess your accountability gap. If you have the data but lack the discipline to execute the 20 hours a week of outreach required for a modern U.S. job search, pay for the accountability partner. We must also address the ethics of the industry one last time. As you navigate the U.S. market in 2026, remember that free doesn't mean low quality, and paid doesn't always mean premium. There are counselors at the University of Michigan or UCLA who are world-class experts provided for free to alumni. Conversely, there are career influencers on social media charging thousands for magic templates that are actually outdated. Your final audit must include a vetting phase. Check for the triple crown of credentials: a relevant master's degree like counseling or industrial organizational psychology, a recognized certification like the NCDA's Master Career Counselor, and at least 10 years of market-proven experience in your specific sector. The potential outcomes for those who master this choice are significant. In an economy defined by permanent volatility, the ability to choose the right guidance is a meta skill. It is the skill that allows you to acquire all other skills. Whether you choose the public path, the private path, or the hybrid path, the most dangerous choice is the zero path. Doing nothing and hoping that hard work alone will be recognized by the 2026 algorithms. Hard work is a necessary condition, but in the United States, strategic visibility is the sufficient condition for a high-tier career. As we conclude this deep dive masterclass, you now have the blueprints for the ATS-ready resume, the Active Signal LinkedIn profile, the DARI interview framework, and the Vegas-style negotiation tactics. You understand the skill-stacking revolution and the 90-day onboarding acceleration. The choice is no longer about free versus paid. It is about general versus surgical. You are now equipped to stop being a job seeker and start being a career architect. But there is one final, hidden variable that we haven't discussed, a variable that can override even the best coaching and the highest paid strategies. It is the ghost in the machine of the 2026 economy, the hidden social credit score of the American professional. In our next masterclass series, we are going to expose how U.S. companies are quietly using alternative data, from your public speaking engagements to your open source contributions, to build a shadow ranking of your market authority. We will show you how to find your own authority score and the 3-step process to cleanse your digital history before the next major hiring cycle begins. Are you ready to see what the shadow recruiters see when they look at your digital footprint? We are going to dive into the world of algorithmic reputation management and why your public persona is the new background check.